No, it's great. Yeah, we'll wait till 4. It's only... Wow, that's really loud. I can't whisper. There's nothing secret. Wow. Is that actually the right... should I make it looser? It's quite loud, isn't it? What does Ajahn Brahm do? Does he wear it down here or down here?
I think this is good enough.
Yeah? Maybe a bit more. Don't want to shock you out of your silence.
Good afternoon, sisters and brothers in the Dhamma. So today we have a special Q&A with Aya Chanda, and I'll just do a very brief verbal intro, and Aya can introduce herself, elaborate further. But Aya, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, she had started out with the Goenka tradition, was actually in Burma for quite a few years, and had various roles, and was ordained as a 10 preceptor nun as well. Then she discovered Ajahn Brahm's talks fortuitously through CD, if I'm not wrong, and then came over to Australia, ordained as a fully ordained bhikkhuni, and then was sent by Ajahn Brahm to set up Anukampa Bhikkhuni Monastery in England. And for a while, she was the onlyest nun and the loneliest nun in the UK. Now less so, thankfully. And,
only but not lonely.
Sorry?
Only but not lonely.
Oh, but not lonely. Yeah, and every retreat is almost like a tradition now where we will invite Aya to do a Q&A. And I think that just to highlight that the Q&A is also not just, it can be for anything, like today's a dialogue. So feel free to ask Aya any questions about meditation, the Dhamma as well. I still vividly remember, I don't know if you remember this, Aya, but there was one time I went to Ajahn Brahm after lunch, and you happened to be seated there. And I had this question, he gave some answer about the jhanas and stuff like that. And something you said just really struck home, because you made this observation about how so much about meditation is about trust. Right. And I was just like, wow, that was so profound and so deep, and that helped really to deepen my own meditation as well. So feel free to ask such questions as well. The shy ones have put the questions in the ice cream bucket, and the Ajahn called the ice cream questions, but yeah, but
very unfair to a monastic to give me a picture of ice cream, because the meal's over for today.
Sorry, that's the only box I could find.
Just kidding. I don't even like ice cream.
Yeah, but it's going to be a dialogue, so it's going to be over to you. Like, how would you like to?
Sure.
To do it.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
be the mic runner, so anyone's got any questions, raise your hands. I'll bring the mic over to you.
Yes. Great idea. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. And no, I don't remember that. So it's amazing, isn't it, what comes out when you're in the presence of great teachers. Oh, good. So, hello, everybody. I think I do recognize very many of you, but not all of you, which is good, because that means some of you are here probably for the first time. And I hope that you are enjoying yourselves. I must say it's unseasonably cold. It's much colder than it was in England when we left, believe it or not. So if you can survive here, you can survive in England, which means you're welcome to visitors and we'll keep you warm. So there are at least 2 people in here, actually. One of them's not here right now. 3 people who have visited us already in England. So I hope that more of you will visit, but not all at once, because it's only small. So, and Miko, you visited as well. Yeah, there's quite a few, actually. So, yeah, it's interesting when other people give the bio. It sounds kind of straightforward, you go to Burma, you get ordained, then you hop over to Australia, take the next one. It's a bit more complicated, a bit more involved than that, but it's been a journey. And I started my practice in 1996 at the age of 20. Not because there's something special in me, but because I was kind of desperate for some reason to have to go through the suffering of life. Even being a teenager is a lot of suffering. I often feel a real affinity and empathy for teenagers, because it's just a hard time when you're trying to work out what you need to do while you're here, who you are as an individual. And so that led to a spiritual search for me and a one-way ticket to India. A little bit risky, perhaps, but I found the Dhamma there in the courses by Goenka, which is a very good beginning. But I wanted to take it deeper. And I found that the more I meditated, the more the process of practice fascinated me, and the less interest I felt in the worldly life, in pursuing the ordinary things of life, the kind of, I didn't really think they could give me that much. And it seemed to me that I now had a practice that would enrich me in ways that living in the world maybe couldn't. Of course we live in the world as monastics, which is going to come through, I'm sure, in the questions. So, I have now been practicing with Ajahn Brahm for about 16 years as a close disciple, and it has transformed my approach to the practice, and I guess emphasize, the aspects of samadhi, samma samadhi, and probably also loving kindness as a part of right attitude, right motivation. So I love to talk about practice, so if you have any practice questions that you want to ask, please feel free. You're also welcome to ask me about monastic life, what it's like to be a bhikkhuni, or anything else. And I think there's a few different things in here. I had a peek at a couple, but I haven't prepared answers. it's better to just be spontaneous. So anyone brave enough to begin, you're welcome to just ask me a question. Yes, wonderful.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm Swee Ling. I live in Singapore.
Hi, Swee Ling.
Thank you very much in advance for your sharing. Could you just tell us a little bit more about your monastery?
About the monastery, yeah. Well, so Ajahn Brahm sent me. I mean, it was kind of a joke between us that why don't I just go to England and start something? And he kind of said, yeah, if you're my disciple and you trust me, that's what you should do. You should go to England. It was kind of a joke. And I approached it again, I think 3 months later after the Rains retreat, and he said, oh, well, I said, were you serious? And he said, well, just go and see if there's any interest. So I went over to a country I hadn't lived in since I was 18. So I only had my 2 parents, my sister, who are not Buddhist, and a best friend who's, has her own life there. And we started by organising Ajahn Brahm's events, which meant having to do a lot of outreach, put myself on social media and say, help, anyone out there who wants to, help with this. So this went on, this is a short version, it went on for about 7 years before we managed to get, enough connections and some funds in the bank, enough to rent a property. So we rented a small place in Oxford simply because I had a couple of friends in Oxford. And I thought it was close enough to London, like about an hour and a half, say, that it was, it was fairly centrally located. So it seemed like a good start. And I stayed in that rented place actually throughout the pandemic in the end for like 2+ years, which was interesting. And at that time, I couldn't have any visitors. I hardly had any anyway. I used to just have one lay guest if I was lucky. Well, I mean, I had to have one lay guest all the time to cook for me because bhikkhunis can't cook for themselves. So again, I had to kind of put out newsletters, just try to ensure there was always someone there. But during the corona pandemic, I couldn't have anyone because it was locked down. And also I have asthma, so I thought, I wasn't sure at that time if it was a risk. I think later they found it wasn't such a risk actually, but it depends on how severe the asthma is. So it looked like a big disaster, but I kind of, pondered, what do I do? Do I just take the time for meditation, or is there some way I can serve? And then we came up with the idea of the Zoom sessions, the online Zoom. So for the whole pandemic, I offered about 3 sessions a week on Zoom. We had like a Dhamma talk and meditation and Q&A one day, guided metta meditation, and then we had like a chanting and dedication session. Because so many people were dying, so many people were under a lot of stress, anxiety, depression. And it ended up being probably the start of the monastery. It ended up being a real blessing in disguise because we actually had this community of probably 200 people who would come every session, not 200 each time, but 40 people, 60 people each time out of a list of about 200 people. And they formed their own community in a way, they would see each other 3 times a week and from all over the world. And after the pandemic, they started to appear in person, like 3D. I was like, wow, can I actually touch this person? And then Ajahn Brahm came back to England in 2022. Yeah, so there was a 2-year gap. He couldn't come in 20 or 21. We did everything online. And then a lot of these people would show up at the events and they'd be so full of gratitude, not only to Ajahn Brahm, but actually to me for having this community. And I started to realize there was a lot of loyalty and a lot of support, to see this happen. So I think that year we had already purchased a house in Oxford, like a small townhouse. But I said to Ajahn that I was approaching 50, and I thought, if we don't make a bigger step, it's going to fizzle, because my energy is going to fizzle. And there were some women who wanted to ordain, but, it's okay to be in a small house in the city, but it's not most people's vision of the life of a forest monastic, right? It's not so secluded, it's not so conducive to developing, the really deep meditation states. So we were traveling back from the north, where we'd both visited our families on a train, me and Ajahn. And I said, oh, it's never going to happen. We just don't have the money. Everything's so expensive. I'll show you, and I'll show you the area that I'm interested in and how expensive it is. So I went on my little mobile. Sometimes it's good to have a mobile. And this property jumped out that was like at least £1 million less than every other property. And by now I'm an expert, so look at the road. If there's an A road anywhere nearby, forget it. Okay, no A road. Look at the floor plan. Is there a place for a meditation hall separate from most of the other rooms? Yes. The floor plan was perfect. So I said, okay, this is perfect. I'm going to phone the agent. What now? He said. I said, yes. So phone the agent. And I think we had like 3 mornings left, maybe 1 free morning. So I said, we've got 1 session, like basically we have between 9 and 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning, I remember the day and everything, to come and do a viewing together. Have you got a slot? Okay, we'll phone you back. And then they phoned us back and they had a slot. We got stuck in traffic on the way, but we made it. And I walked in and I just thought, oh, I like this. I really like this. Actually, I love this. This is amazing. And I could already envision what we would do in each room, how we would use the place, and I could just picture it. And I remember when we were sitting in the big, now it's a dana sala, the living room, with Ajahn Brahm and the agent, and I was kind of saying, what are the next steps, blah, blah, blah. And this feeling of peace came over me, like I could just land here after all these years, like 9 years, of having nowhere to stay, basically, until we got the rented place. I was just living house to house. It was extremely exhausting. I never had to use money. I kept my precepts really strong, but it was very isolating, being the only member of the Sangha in the project. And we made an offer and we got the property in 2023. We moved in. So a few people have visited. I don't know, what did you think, Marina?
It's a wonderful place.
Oh.
Yeah. And I highly recommend it for...
Oh, hang on, microphone.
It's a very peaceful and wonderful place. If you have a chance to visit Oxford, I think you should make a trip there, visit Ayya Chanda or the disciples.
I have trainees now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened. The place itself is 5 miles from Oxford on a hill in a really nice woodland kind of area. And it's an adventure. I never know what's coming from day to day. I mean, we don't have practice at being abbots before we're abbots, we're just thrown in. So.
Do you do retreats there?
Not retreats at the monastery, although we do like half-day retreats. So it's more of a training monastery, just like Bodhinyana and Dhammasara. So most of the retreats we do are outside the actual monastery because we only have 5 bedrooms. I mean, things are so expensive in England. To get something with the dimensions we have downstairs, which are really quite spacious, you only get a few bedrooms. So my vision is that we have sort of 3, 4, maybe 5 monastics at most there. We'd have to kind of divide some of the rooms up probably. And then if more people want to train, we start to look for more property, or we send them away, to different places to spread the seed, plant the seed in different places. So that's the idea. But people who come and stay, I mean, I say no retreats, but people come and stay with us. And what you get is the Eightfold Path retreat. Because in the morning you have community time, and you serve together, you cook or clean, or, just learn how to interact in a skillful way, using right speech, being kind, giving others the benefit of the doubt, really practicing the Dhamma. And then in the afternoons, it's pretty much quiet time, so we keep the place silent, and and you're free to deepen your practice. So I have had a lot of visitors who've said that it's been a huge support for deepening their practice. Just this idea of spiritual community, which is so hard to find in the world. Because you come to a retreat like this, it's wonderful while you're here. You might get to check in with each other at the end, but then what happens when you go home? A lot of the time, you know, you might not meet each other again, or, you know, you might not have other friends that think like you. You might have changed. Your values are different. So when we have a community together, we can support each other and meet with like-minded people, you know. And so if I'm there for the long term, which I'm expecting to be, people really build a relationship of trust, of of knowing you, you know, and I also get to know people properly, so the guidance I can give is much better. Yeah, so I think that's the benefit of a monastery. Anyone else in the hall? Aha.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Mikko, I'm almost a monk. I'm a few weeks from becoming a monk, and I've also visited Ajahn Chanda's place. It's a very lovely place. Only stayed there for a few hours, but still great. And my question has to do with something you mentioned in the beginning there about like drawing close to Ajahn Brahm because you wanted to deepen your practice in samadhi and also loving kindness. So what was about the loving kindness? Like, what do you think was like missing before? Like, what was something that Ajahn Brahm like brought to the table? Because it's kind of like an obvious part of Buddhist practice, but sometimes it's not like emphasized as much as Ajahn Brahm emphasized.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so how did my practice of loving kindness change? What was it that Ajahn Brahm brought that other teachers hadn't? And I think in the Goenka tradition, it's basically so similar in the sense that we do some kind of kaya nupassana, which means like observing the body, understanding the body, you know, observing the sensations and the change in the sensations in the body. We also do a lot of breath meditation. And we also practice metta at the end of the retreat. But the metta that we practiced was always kind of almost like a separate technique. So it was something you did at the end, and it was something to kind of heal yourself, you know, from having gone through this really deep process, and to share the merits, to share, you know, whatever you've developed in yourself that's good and wholesome with others. And I think for me, what was one aspect of what was missing in the metta was the gentleness, and also the integration of that metta into the practice as an attitude, like as a way of actually regarding everything that arises. So in that method, the first method I learned, equanimity was very much emphasized. So you'd be aware of the feelings in the body, and you'd develop this sense of everything's arising, passing, and feel it, you know, really experience it at quite a deep level. And it becomes redundant to react. There's actually no purpose in reacting to something that's changing, you know. It's almost changing faster than you can actually react to it. So the equanimity would develop quite strong. But there tended to be a bit of a stoic kind of, you understand these words, right? I'm speaking kind of strange words, but yeah, a kind of, you know, I must sit here and not necessarily endure, but definitely kind of be equanimous, you know, under at any cost, be equanimous, don't react. And in a way, a little bit forceful. So I think one of the first talks I heard by Ajahn Brahm really emphasized like just being with one breath and just treating that breath as the dearest friend you've ever met, you know, just this one little breath, and, you know, you don't even worry about observing the next breath. You're just so grateful for this one breath and for the fact that you can be with this breath, you know, especially for people who struggle with the meditation on the breath, thanking yourself, you know, wow, well done, you know. You're aware of one breath, that's wonderful. Now be aware of another breath. So there was just this gentleness, and it kind of seemed to permeate the practice, you know. It was a case of establishing an attitude, an environment, a kind of atmosphere of tenderness and gentleness and care, and this kind of unconditional welcoming of whatever would arise. So even now, I mean, I practice this way, you know, I establish right attitude in the beginning. And then whatever arises, it's held in kindness. I think this is one major difference. And as far as I could tell at that time, Ajahn was the only teacher really teaching this, really emphasizing the second factor of the path. And it makes perfect sense. There's a fantastic talk by him in, I think, 2005 Rains Retreat called Good Meditation Kamma. And he's talking about these three right attitudes. So it's nekama, letting go or letting be. Yeah, letting things be, not controlling, not possessing, not owning things, not identifying. And gentleness and loving kindness. And, considering that this is actually the karma that you're making. Karma isn't something that's, it's not fate. It's not something that we, did in the past and we're going to get the results now. Karma is something that we're generating all the time in the present moment. So if we can relate to the present moment with these good attitudes, then we're generating good karma no matter what arises. So the emphasis is not on the experience. The emphasis is on how you relate to that experience. And this for me was just really softened my mind and the practice and brought probably a lot more humility as well. It became less kind of me doing the meditation and more just the mind in a way, creating beautiful conditions and nurturing the practice. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anything else? Shall I go for one from the box so the ice cream people don't get left out? Okay, would keeping pets be beneficial or detrimental to our practice? There's attachment, but also lots of kindness. Please advise. Okay, well, it depends what kind of pet you want to keep, doesn't it? I mean, if you want to keep like a pet bear or something, or a pet tiger, then yeah, it could be detrimental. I have thought about this because I like looking after plants. And sometimes I thought, I wouldn't actually mind an animal too. But then I realized I'd never be able to leave the monastery and go on retreat. So I kind of kept it to the plants. And even that can be tricky. I hear that my plants have been overwatered in my absence, so I'm expecting to go back and grieve over my poor little plants. But I think, generally speaking, anything that can bring a bit more love and tenderness into your life can be really good. Maybe have a pet that's not going to tie you down too much. Depends on your lifestyle, right? If someone else can look after the pet so that you can go on retreat, it's fine. And I think just stroking an animal, just making that connection, like sensing how that animal feels. And the animals sense how you feel too. That can be really quite lovely. I remember sometimes in one of my previous monasteries, sometimes you didn't necessarily get on with the other monks and nuns. And you wouldn't necessarily talk very much, but there was a beautiful dog, a really loving and kind dog that everybody just adored. And sometimes we would just come together around the dog, around our love for that dog. We'd just find ourselves stroking the dog, talking about the dog, and we wouldn't have much conversation outside of that, but it kind of brought us together. So that can happen, and I think there's research that shows that people that have a pet, or even plants, especially in their older age, they tend to last longer because there's something to care for, someone else to care for. Yeah. Of course, you can be your own pet too. Oh, little Venchanda's feeling fluffy and sad. And you can give yourself a pat on the back or a tickle behind the ears. So, yeah, see for yourself. I mean, the thing about attachment as well is that as long as we have not, practice the path to the level of anagami, which is the third stage of enlightenment. Any anagamis here? No? So you're going to have attachment, So have it to things that are wholesome and beneficial and that help you to generate these three right attitudes. Yeah. So don't worry too much about attachment. It's like Ajahn Brahm always says, there's two ends, right? You don't cut off attachment at the level of the thing you're attached to. Attachment is worn down when you start to see that there's no one actually there to do the attaching. That's when attachment starts to fade. So, yeah, make it a wholesome attachment. I have to attach to my new anagarikas, right? Do I? Or would you like it if I was cool and aloof? Uh-oh. Say the right thing. Wonderful as you are. Oh, thank you. But seriously, you have to pour your love into life. Don't be afraid to love. I said to one of the senior bhikkhunis who came to visit me in England, I said, I really feel this sense of love and nurture towards my anagarikas. I just feel like so blessed actually to have the opportunity to support their path to some extent, and a sense of unconditional love, like not being able to choose between them, not being able to kind of compare. It's just, I'm here to help you as best I can, and may you just be happy, may you just take these conditions and make them work for you, And I said, I'm sure there's some attachment, but I really love my anagarikas. Is that bad? And she said, that's good. That's good. I was like, yes. So you have to, you have to give your love in life. And yeah, you get hurt. I don't know, maybe you get hurt more, I don't know, but I would say I'd go for that. I'd have a richer life, a more meaningful life, and maybe you just have to work through grief that comes from attachment. There's nothing wrong with tears either. So don't be afraid too much. Yeah. Anything else from the floor? Yes. Hi, I think I see you every year. What's your name again?
Jeremiah.
Hi, Jeremiah.
Hello. Yeah, last year was my first Jhana Grove retreat, and first I wanted to say how much I respect. You shared last year a lot more of your journey of becoming a nun and almost having to disrobe. It was not easy for those who haven't heard the full story to get where she is today. Is really inspiring, and I love that you're creating more opportunities for other people who want to become nuns to have a safe and beautiful place to practice. So, lots of metta for that. Thank you. It was very inspiring. And I also wanted to share some of the metta practices you put on YouTube. Not only helped me a ton, but I've circulated them with patients, and I've seen it lift people out of some very dark spaces. So I just wanted to thank you for that too. And as you're settling into the new monastery, I wanted to hear a little bit about how that was going, and also if there was anything you needed to continue to have some grace in the practice and to support what you're doing. Because I know it was an old building, I think, in a big property. So
yeah, thank you so much for those really heartwarming words. That's so kind of you. And it has been really hard, and it's been the fact that it matters to people like yourself and that it can be of benefit. When I began, I just thought, I'm not a teacher. I mean, I'm not, enlightened. This is way beyond me. And I just had to tell myself, look, you just give what you give. It's not you doing it, and if someone can benefit, it's worth it. So when I hear that people benefit, it's just heartwarming, and that's what gives me the energy to keep going. That's why I've never given up. So I'm really happy that it's helping your patients. Yeah. So you were asking first about, sorry, I actually forget now, about how it was to settle in, was that? Yeah.
How is it settling into the monastery, and is there anything that you need to help it function well?
Yeah, thank you so much.
You've had enough challenge along the way. We should be trying to make it a little more graceful from here on out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I must say, just having a base is like a huge difference. Every year when I'd leave this place, I'd get kind of very wobbly, because it's like I'm going back out to no community. It's like literally the lifeline of a monastic to have a community. But last year I was actually looking forward to getting back to our community, and I think I feel similar this time too. So I was really fortunate to move in with Venerable Upeka, who's a bhikkhuni from Dhammasara, now in Santi, near Sydney, who's a good friend of mine. We ordained together actually as bhikkhunis, and she was visiting me at the time. And we also had my other now Anagarika Chi. She moved in with us as a layperson, but as somebody who'd been consistently supporting us for a couple of years. And a couple of other friends too, one trustee and another friend from several years. So we moved in with a big team, and it was fantastic. Because, in the past, when I thought about the move, I thought it'll be quite sad if I just move in on my own and then It's like there's not that sense of excitement, but there was that sense of this is for the community. And I think we just got on with it. The very first day we moved in, the carpets were wet because they only cleaned them that day. So all the stuff we had to put on a few tiled areas. And then that night, the ceiling leaked, actually, after a couple of people had a shower. So we had to call the emergency plumber. But throughout that time, I think we had one person who stayed for the week, and she was cooking all the food, so we didn't have to worry about food. And then, I don't know, life as a monastic, is, especially in a leadership role, is so busy. You just get on with the day after day. You're just finding your way, and things unfold. So I think the settling in has been really good. And the first springtime was just amazing because we saw these plants that we didn't know what they were bloom, and the cherry blossom was like an angel just kind of hovering outside the Dhamma hall window. It was magical, really. You come into the room where we meditate, and it's just this big glass window at one side, and outside there's this cherry blossom, sort of flat and white, like a angel or a cloud. It couldn't have been more perfectly positioned, you know. So, there's been a few things we've discovered about the house, such as it's very cold in the winter and extremely hot in the summer. So clearly the insulation is not great. We have had a new boiler put in for quite some expense, some roof insulation, which hasn't really made any difference. So now we're thinking about replacing the double glazing, because it's really old. It's like 40 years plus. More than that, isn't it? It's 1961. That's like 60 years, isn't it? 63 years or 4 years. So that's a project. What else? We need a new washing machine. Huh? Oh, a front door. The front door's cracked. Like it's a wooden door and it's full of gaps, and you can literally see through the front of the front door into the lobby, which is quite funny. But on a more collaborative level, I actually went to Dhammasara recently and spoke to Venerable Hasapanya, the abbot there, and she had a great idea, because we don't get regular dana, we don't get, all the Buddhist community coming to offer food every day, in fact, maybe only twice a week. So sometimes people from overseas can send kind of food from a restaurant or something like this. But because of my stomach, there's not much I can eat. So she came up with the idea of, why don't you just get things like that you can put in the oven, like, I don't know, shepherd's pie or some kind of meal that you can have in the freezer and then just put in the oven when no one's coming. And then the Anagarikas, or this Anagarika, who's going to ordain as a seminary in November. So soon we want to at least give her some break from the kitchen. So things like that can be done from a distance. You can get in touch with our team. There's a little leaflet out there, team@anukampaproject.org, and you can offer a meal like that and it will be delivered. So yeah, they're really, really useful ways to be involved. We want to change our website. We just put that together really fast when the whole project started in the end of 2015. And we've tried to find web designers and stuff like this, but it's never worked out. So I'm a bit allergic to the whole idea of it now, but I'm fed up with the website. It looks ugly. So if anyone knows how to make a pretty looking website without changing the website, just the design, that would be amazing. Put it out there. Yeah. And another way that, of course, everyone here can help is come and visit, because it really does create that sense of community and we learn from each other. It's not like here where, there's benefits to a big place, definitely. You can be very anonymous, there's a lot of space. There's also a lot of people you can talk to if you choose to, a lot of variety. But in our place, it's smaller, so the advantage is that you really get to know people. And that is also very nourishing. So, yeah, hopefully you can come visit someday. So, shall I go for the box? Was there another one in here? Not yet. All right. Okay. Yeah, okay. As part of my job, I occasionally have to prescribe medications to people who have infections with worms, mites or ticks to help them become better. These worms and mites inevitably die as a result. I'm conflicted as this feels like I'm breaking a precept. Please advise, kindly advise. Thank you so much. You're not breaking a precept because your motivation is actually to cure the disease. It's not to kill the tick just for the sake of killing the tick. But unfortunately, we have to, do the right thing to make sure that we are healthy and we can practice the Dhamma. So when you practice, share your merits with these little insects, these little beings who are trying so hard to survive, just like all of us, And I think it's a really great position you're in a way, because not only do you help people to become healthy, you also have the opportunity to reflect on the fact that as a human being in samsara, we can't live without causing some amount of harm. It's impossible. So rather than trying to imagine that we can live without causing any harm, we try to live causing minimal harm. Yeah? I think this is a much better approach. I often think, I really respect and admire the idea of, for example, veganism, right? It's great. I mean, most people are vegans out of compassion for the animals and, out of not wanting to support the meat industry and, it's become just out of all proportion compared to the Buddha's day. A lot of it is feeding our greed and not really our need and depleting the world's resources, destroying the natural environment. So it's a wonderful, thing to aim for. But I think one of the places it goes wrong is when vegan people then start saying that if you eat meat, you're not compassionate. I have to eat meat. And I was vegetarian, pretty much vegan for at least 15 years. But because of my health condition, I now actually have to eat it. I mean, it's as simple as that. And so I try to minimize the harm that does by making use of my life for the benefit of others in the best way I possibly can, and reflecting that, as a human being, as any being, we're going to have to, sometimes kill other beings unintentionally. How many of you haven't stood on a millipede? I don't know. I mean, even the fact that we have the lights on all the time here, the millipedes are coming out onto the path and they're getting dehydrated. They die within, I think, 15 minutes, I read. Something like that, or maybe an hour. Not very long. Yeah. Once they come out of the bush, they dehydrate. So this is the world we're in. But it's a very, very good world, a good place, good rebirth to practice the Dhamma. Because yes, there's suffering, and yes, we cause harm, but we can also do a lot of good. And there's enough happiness to be found, especially in things like sila, virtue, and in purifying the mind, sense restraint, and practicing the path, right effort or right endeavor, cultivating wholesome states, and then quietening the mind. There's a lot of happiness there that can really be enriched by understanding suffering. So take that as a reflection, I would say. And definitely no guilt. Guilt and inner turmoil is not really helpful, because of course we have to give medicines to help these people recover. Yeah. Okay. Uh-oh. I had a sneaky peek at this one. Can you kindly share with us a typical day? What a typical day or routine is like? Thank you. So the time goes fast, so I'll try and be quick. But my basic answer to this is that there is a kind of structure to a monastic lifestyle. But that structure, to me, encourages a sense of letting go, because we try to follow the structure. It's there to help us relinquish our sense of, don't really feel like meditating, but no, there's an hour sitting in the morning, so try and turn up and just be with your mind, even if it's grumpy, even if it's sleepy. Learn to be kind to it, no matter how you feel. And we have an hour meditation in the evening, so the same thing. So we have a kind of structure in the sense that we begin and end the day with meditation. We also have a silent period in the afternoon, and then in between, in the morning, we have a work meeting, and we go through the duties for each person that day. and then some kindful service. So again, the cooking or gardening or whatever people are called on to do. But the rest of the monastic life, and especially for me in my role, is totally unpredictable. So there is no such thing as a typical day at all. So not only does that typical day change from person to person, depending on your role in the monastery, it also changes according to the challenges that we meet from time to time. So a really essential quality of renunciation and of, anyone on the path, especially the renunciate path, is that we can adapt, that we can learn to meet challenges skillfully, rise to the challenge of what we're asked to do, because it's not always what we want to do. And just be like nature in that way, be like a tree in the breeze that bends when it's windy and that calms down when it's still. Take the opportunities you can to practice when you can, to meditate. And at other times, just give yourself fully to the task at hand. I have to do a lot of emails, a lot of conference calls, a lot of managing of volunteers, mentoring of my anagarikas, and what else do I have to do? Organising events, writing newsletters, formatting photos, fiddly stuff. And nothing like what I thought monastic life would look like. Nothing at all. And if I resist that, then that's the sense of self is creeping back in. So I realised that, the sense of self, especially this little sense of self, like, I don't like it. Why should I have to do this? When this creeps in, it's really interesting. You wouldn't notice it if you didn't, have to do these things, right? And that's one of the differences between lay life and monastic life. As a lay person, you have a lot more flexibility to go where you want, when you want, choose your holiday, choose which climate you'd like your holiday in, whether you want to go by cruise or by train or by, I don't know what you want to do. But we don't have that escape. So the monastic form is really interesting. It's almost like a container that is slightly structured, but that allows for you to go much, much deeper into a very complex inner world. And it allows for things that we don't necessarily want to see to start to surface. So it's a challenge, and there needs to be a lot of trust and a lot of openness, transparency, revealing ourselves, revealing our mistakes, how we're feeling, between each other. So it's very interesting. It's almost like, I think Bhante Sajate once gave a talk about sadness. And he was talking about how you can be sad to a song. Often when we feel sad, we play a song that's also a little bit sad. And the reason we can feel sad when we listen to it is because there's a structure to it. So there's a rhythm, like maybe it's 4 beats or 3 beats or whatever, I don't know what you call it, but 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, right? And there's a start and there's an end, it's kind of contained. And because of that, because of the structure, you can cry, you can let yourself grieve or whatever, and at the end of the song, you turn it off. It's a little bit similar in monastic life. There's enough structure to hold you, but also a lot of space to allow whatever needs to be seen, met, and made peace with to arise. So you have to be willing to, you have to be open. If you are thinking about monastic life, definitely visit different monasteries. A monastery that's more developed, that's bigger, will have more of a structure. Or let's say it'll be a little bit more institutionalized, so it will require that everybody kind of goes to meetings at the same time, comes to, dana at the same time, etc. It'll be kind of similar day by day. But then, of course, as you develop in monastic life, you might be asked to teach, so the seniors will be going out and about a bit. But in the beginning, like in the first sort of 5 to 7 years, it can feel pretty tight. And I'm sort of explaining this to my anagarikas, that it can feel almost controlling. So you have to willingly know why you're kind of taking that on and willingly take it on. Otherwise, you can project a lot onto the abbot and say, they're controlling me, when it's actually part of the system that works. And then in a smaller monastery like ours, because the Bhikkhuni Sangha isn't actually established, really. I mean, I'm now almost one of the seniors in the system, you know, and that sounds crazy because I'm the first one in England. So it's like, how can I be a senior and yet I'm the first? You know, it's so new. So we might think we have established, you know, bhikkhunis in the practice and in the leadership roles, but we're just learning the ropes. One of my non-friends said, we don't have grandmothers. You know, Ajahn Brahm talks about grandfather Cha, right? I mean, they're actually called Lungpo, that means like grandpa, right? We don't have any of those as bhikkhunis, so we are that, and we're also the child. So it's very different, but it also allows for a lot of creativity, which is fun in many ways. And I think it also allows us to be freer from the kind of, how would I say, let's just call it trappings, that was the word that came to mind, of some traditions. You know, we don't have to do it the Thai way, we don't have to do it the Sri Lankan way, we can do it the early Buddhist way, the early Buddhist Oxford. Oxford way, no, there's nothing Oxford about it, but you know, the Dhamma, it changes depending on the culture it establishes itself in. So I feel very, proud isn't the right word, I don't think we've got a good word in England, in English. Proud, but kind of I feel very, a lot of appreciation and joy and rejoicing that our community is extremely mixed, racially, age-wise, gender-wise, yeah, in many, many ways. Few people, but very loyal people and very diverse. So it's not a Sri Lankan temple, it's not a Thai temple. That's why I don't call myself Ajahn. I'm just a bhikkhuni my elders are the bhikkhuni elders from the time of the Buddha. And a few bhikkhunis today who are senior to me, that's it. In the middle, very little. So a typical day is hard to predict. Yeah. Should I speed up a bit?
Does anyone have any questions? I promise I'll get you out at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, don't worry, because I
minutes.
actually put off my next appointment. So let's say 5:15, I can probably push it. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
If people are interested, yeah, to continue.
Any questions?
Yeah. Please do ask anything, especially any aspiring nuns here. Anyone? Some of you have far too much hair.
Yes. One question.
Hi, thank you, PJ. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Aya. My friends call me MP. This is my first time at Jana Grove.
Excellent, welcome.
Thank you. I was really interested to hear you just briefly mention your parents, your sister, your best friend,
yeah.
and friends who've moved into the monastery with you.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, throughout this time, you've maintained friendships and familial relationships.
Right.
How do you
yeah.
hold these as a nun?
Thank you. Thanks for those questions. Yeah, about family relationships. Sometimes when people ordain, they think they'll have to cut off from their family, you know. And I think families in particular are very nervous about that. Am I losing my son or my daughter? And yeah, I guess I left England when I was really young. I was 19. I went to India on that one-way ticket. And I look back now and I think my poor mother, because there were no phones, there was no internet, you know, she just had to wait for a letter to come through the post. And thank goodness I was kind enough to send her one every couple of weeks. You know, some daughters might forget. And then she'd think, well, is she alive or dead? I don't know. So she went through a lot. And I guess during that time, I was 10 years in India and Nepal, mostly, practicing and serving in many, many meditation retreats. And due to attachment, which is not always a bad thing, she would come and visit me. So she and my dad came out to India and Thailand and even Burma, sometimes alone, sometimes together, several times. And over time, they started to see me changing. You know, they started to see that I'd really found something that meant a lot to me and that I was committed to. And I think seeing that commitment over the years made them think, there must be something to this. And then also they would meet the people I was around who were all really good people. And that gave them confidence too. I would also visit England every couple of years at least. And, you know, whenever I'd get back there, it'd be like, treated like I'm 15 and revert to the 15-year-old teenager. So there'd be family dynamics, you know, but we were basically the same people. I guess they could see that. And so by the time I ordained, I think they were kind of prepared because they'd already seen that I live in Asia, and I ordained in Myanmar in 2006. So they came out there, they met my teacher. He was pretty strict. I mean, we used to meditate 14 hours a day at least. And as a special allowance, he said my parents could meditate only 3. So I was like, wow. I mean, it seemed like very little to me as well, but I thought, that's great, you know. So they were sitting at the back, just like PJ, sitting on a chair, probably not smiling as much, but you know, I'd be sitting there in the front, and every so often I'd look, oh God, my parents are meditating. Oh my God. I was so happy, so excited about it. They also took the 5 precepts because you kind of had to stay there. So, yeah. And they got the very best of well, very basic food, but it was the best of it. So, yeah, I did maintain that relationship because I think even in my first meditation retreat, I realized that although things hadn't been easy in my teens, my parents had given me the confidence, you know, to really pursue my own life. And I just wrote to them to say, you know, never think that I've left because you did anything wrong. You know, the fact that I could leave and I had the confidence to do this shows that you've been wonderful parents. And they told me that they opened that letter and, you know, shed some tears. And it really meant something to them. And I think having that distance and sometimes pursuing your own path, even if it seems like you're separating from your friends and your family, if they really love you and if you love them, you can bring them along. You know, they will come along. Of course, there would be friends that don't, but my best friend and I, we grew up together since the age of 4. She's now on my trust. She's one of my trustees. So she also came to Asia. We went together in the beginning, but she also got into meditation as well. And she has a family. She has a much more ordinary life, a very wholesome life, a fairly simple life, but we're still the best of friends. Yeah. So we don't need to cut anyone out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Hope that you're well and enjoying your stay at Jhana Grove. It's the last night. Oh gosh, look at this. Is the Thai Sangha friendly and supportive? I have to keep my precepts. Of the nuns. Could you please share and comment? Thank you. Oh dear. Yes. It's a bit of a sad story. I mean, when we talk about Thai Sangha, it's a tricky area because, of course, within the Thai Sangha, within any community, any group of people, there are individuals only, right? It's made up of individuals. So there's no kind of, I can't say what every individual thinks. There might be people in the Thai Sangha that are really supportive and, well, you know, have a very friendly disposition towards bhikkhunis. I'm sure there are. But unfortunately, because it is a kind of institution and there is this sort of legal body in Thailand, I don't know. I don't understand it. I haven't even bothered to try and understand it because I don't really think it's that healthy. That don't support bhikkhunis, like, you know, that's the official line, that they don't support the bhikkhuni ordination because they don't think it's viable. They think that we died out, which is not really true. It's a bit of a myth. The Bhikkhuni Sangha was most probably always kept alive within the Mahayana tradition. And the Mahayana tradition have pretty much the identical ordination process to the one we have in Theravada. So this idea of Mahayana and Theravada is a later idea. In early Buddhism, there's no such division. So most probably they've always been bhikkhunis, but unfortunately in the Theravada tradition, as far as we know, there haven't been bhikkhunis for perhaps 1,000 years, perhaps less. There's more and more research coming out that shows there were bhikkhunis in Burma, there were probably bhikkhunis in many countries much later than that, actually. I'm sure there would have been, you know, women practicing quietly in remote places that no one knew about. So unfortunately, the sort of party line is that, yeah, you can't really do the bhikkhuni ordination, and they make excuses. You know, as a bhikkhuni, as a member of a marginalised community, which I really am, there's like me in England, is pretty marginalised. I don't want to get into their mindset because it can be depressing. I just have to focus on lighting that candle in the dark. But yeah, unfortunately, it does seem that in England, in the Thai Forest Sangha there, which is really the UK Forest Sangha, but, you know, a branch of Wat Pah Pong, nothing's changed really. It hasn't moved on. There's no dialogue around it. If there is, it's kind of, again, excuses and, oh, well, you know, the rules are archaic. Oh, well, you don't really need to be fully ordained. And this is from monks. So I just feel like saying, so why don't you be a samanera then? Why don't you be a 8-precept monk? Why do you need the full ordination if we don't, right? So I don't really want to get into that. I just think, well, this is the Buddha's wish. This is our inheritance from the Buddha. So if we have the opportunity to take it, I mean, wonderful. So unfortunately, it's not very friendly or supportive. But we do have in Oxford, anyway, which is one of the reasons I stayed, we have a very friendly little Burmese temple with monks from the Shan state of Burma, which is like the northern part. I think their language is very similar to Northeast Thai. So some of them actually consider themselves more Thai than from Myanmar, but they are Shan, so that's their ethnic group, and they're all really highly educated, both in Burma and in Oxford. That's why they're there, to study things like neuroscience, psychology, to study Buddhist studies all over again from a Western style of education, so that they can learn to analyze, discuss, and teach the Dhamma in a more proactive way. And this is a monastery attached to Venerable Dhammasami. I don't know how many of you might have heard of him. He's a great monk from Myanmar who has an international Buddhist university and about 30 universities that he looks after. And his approach to changing the military oppression in Myanmar is to change the education system through the monasteries by teaching in a much more collaborative, student-led way. So it's just marvelous to hear about his work. You know, he gets the students to kind of peer teach and also give each other feedback and draw out each other's strengths. So they use the practice of mudita, which is his main practice. Mudita is one of the Brahma Viharas. It means like rejoicing, joy, sympathetic joy, being happy, rejoicing in the goodness of others, in the success of others, yeah, in the happiness of others. So he uses this as a practice in the way he teaches, and the monks over in Oxford are kind of sent over there to get this education, and then some of them will go back. And they are so supportive of us, really supportive, but not in a political way, just in a, it's not even an issue kind of way. And that's wonderful. So they come for dana to us. Sometimes we go down to them. When Venerable Upeka was with me, she'd be going down there and asking to borrow a saw or to borrow a drill, because she loves to do all that kind of stuff. She'd be walking along the bridge, you know, with the saw, swinging it by her side, and the people on the bridge are like, ooh, who's this crazy person with a saw? So yeah, it's very friendly and very no issue. So that's extremely supportive for me. And as far as I know, they're the only ones in England that are really like that friendly and supportive. But I have my international Sangha, so that's why I come here every year to my, you know, base community. And Ajahn Brahm and other monks and nuns come and visit too. So, yeah. So don't let these things, you know, you can't wait, can you, for other people to kind of catch up. You just have to go ahead and do it. And if they come on board someday, good for them. If not, I think it's a loss. Yeah. All right. Anything else from the floor? You're welcome to add or comment. It doesn't have to be a question. Anything at all. Yeah? Hi.
I'm new here as well.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, I'm Linda.
Hi,
I'm
Linda.
from Singapore. In passing just now, you mentioned something about attachment being fine.
Yeah. I knew that when I said that it could be mistaken, so thank you.
Yes, so I just wanted maybe some clarification.
Yes, attachment is always causes suffering. Okay, attachment always causes suffering. But what I was trying to say is that as human beings who are not yet enlightened, we're going to have the tendency to attach. So because of that, we have to try and make those attachments as wholesome as we can. We can't bypass it. We can't try to say, okay, I'll just kind of not get too close to this person because I mustn't be attached. If you do that, you'll be attached to the screen, or you'll be attached to, I don't know what, ChatGTP or some, I don't know, what do you have? These kind of fake people that you think you're not attached to, and then people get attached to that as well, right? Or you say, okay, I'm attached to ice cream, I better not eat ice cream. So you eat twice as much of something else. Or you don't eat any ice cream all month, and then when you see the ice cream, you eat the whole lot. You know, this is kind of a kind of suppression, right, of you know, our wanting and our liking. So don't worry about the small things, they're pretty harmless. You know, Ajahn Brahm often says that. It's not that attachment is ever good, but sometimes it's really not the main issue, whether you like chocolate or ice cream, you know. He always says, be more careful about what comes out of your mouth than what goes in. Because that's really where we do more harm, isn't it? So, but in terms of relationships, I guess some attachment is inevitable until we're really, you know, advanced on the path. But I don't think that should mean that we don't form loving, wholesome relationships, and especially spiritual friendships. You know, they're going to be purer because they're for a higher purpose. One of the lovely things Ajahn Brahm said to me and to my trainees, I think, when he came in June, he came to England, I talked to him about, you know, family and the responsibility we have to our blood families, you know, our relatives, and also the idea of spiritual family in a monastery, you know, especially because of the new nuns or nuns-to-be. Somebody called you nun-pops, which I quite like. So because of my nun-pops, this subject came up. And he said, spiritual families has a stronger outcome. Sometimes he just has these very short phrases. But I loved that. Does that make sense to anyone? I mean, sometimes it's like a koan. He just says it. He's like, you know, you compare family to spiritual family. Spiritual family has a stronger outcome. And what he meant by that, I think, is that it takes you on the path. And also by developing spiritual community, we learn to share the Dhamma. And then we can put out that Dhamma in a way that really helps in the world. You know, in our blood families, we can do wonderful things too. We can give our kids an education. We can bring them up to be wonderful people who go out and get jobs in the world. And great, you know, whatever is your passion, go for it. But no job, whether you're a doctor or a teacher or, you know, even doing charity work, Doctors Without Borders, all these incredible sacrifices people make, they can help people now. They can help people come out of suffering, maybe. They can save lives, maybe. But you're still in samsara. You've still got to come back and suffer again and go through it all again. So the Buddha was the greatest physician. You know, the Buddha had this remedy to bring you out of all suffering, not only of this life, but for all lives. And in that sense, it has a stronger outcome. So we do need to be careful where we put our energy, let's say. And was it Ajahn Mahabua said? Do you know about him? He was one of the Lung Tas, which is like grandma, actually, or grandfather, but of a grandma. So anyway, it's the feminine form of Lung Po. And I actually lived with him for 6 weeks in Thailand, not just for 7 days, for 6 weeks in the forests of Thailand. And he had this analogy, because I asked him actually about attachment to my teacher in Myanmar. I was very attached to my teacher in Myanmar. Now I've transferred it onto Ajahn Brahm. Poor old Ajahn. He can cope with it without getting attached back, so it's really good. But I was very attached to my teacher in Burma because, I mean, he was the first time I'd met somebody who had genuine attainments on the path and was so full of metta. And as a person who's just gone forth, you need to feel very secure that this person has your back. You know, you're giving up so much. You know, further down the line, you give up money completely. You know, you're committing to something for life sometimes. So I had an attachment, and I asked Ajahn Mahabua about that, Is it bad? And he said, it's like to climb a ladder. You have to attach to one rung first before you can pull yourself up to the next rung. And then you have to attach to that rung. And then you pull yourself up to the next. And only when you get to the top of the ladder, I don't know, you get a parachute or something. No, you can let go. It's just an analogy. So at the top of the ladder, you're self-dependent. You know, when you attain to stream winning, then you become independent in the Dhamma. You're still training, but you can walk on your own. So the attachment is less. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Very good. What else have we got? Ooh. I'm just making sure I can read the writing. Oh, thank you. It's about the monastery again. I hope this is okay for everyone. I don't want to talk about myself all the time. Well, it's about the monastery, not myself. Okay. How does it feel to run a non's monastery? It's really interesting, you know. There's two totally different levels. On the physical level, it's utterly exhausting, quite stressful, and totally overwhelming. Okay? And on the other level, it's totally meaningful, enriching, a privilege, and a joy. It is really a lesson in the different types of happiness. I don't have a whole lot of hedonic happiness. You know, that's the feeling pleasant type of happiness. The sensations, the feelings, especially the physical feelings, are often ones of tiredness, headache, you know, bad tummy, even anxiety, stress. But the emotional feeling, when I get underneath that, even just for an hour's meditation, I get piti coming up. I get joy coming up. When people come for dana, I see their face, I see their kindness, I know I depend on them. And I am so grateful for their kindness and generosity. I just get so much inspiration. So it's really interesting in terms of, you know, the kind of happiness that's worth pursuing and that can be relied upon. And I guess I asked myself this question, you know, I had a melanoma on my arm. I'm sure I've told the same story again and again. It's the closest I'd been to like a diagnosis that could be, you know, very time limiting. I think 5 years if it's spread is your kind of max. So at that time I went through some kind of interesting emotions, some visceral fear and a lot of feeling of like pure metta would just come up from time to time, totally unexpectedly. That's pure loving kindness to everyone in my life or whoever was in front of me. And at the same time I asked myself, you know, if I only had like 3 to 5 years, what would I do? Would I stop the project? Would I stop this kind of crazy workload and all this admin and all the rest? And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't. I'd continue because it's just the most incredible thing I can do with my life. It's such an honor to be asked to serve in this way. And I realized that, yeah, perhaps some of the stress around it, some of the areas where the sense of self gets involved, they could drop away. And perhaps I would do a bit more meditation, but I'd actually be very keen to see that this could continue into the future, that I could pass it on. So that was a surprise to me, actually, and very touching. And I realized, yeah, this is something I really believe in. It's something really meaningful. And if I can do this, because I'm in a position, I'm being supported so much by my teacher. I mean, we talk every week, and he's there through thick and thin for every small detail. And it's a joy to work together. He also loves to do it. I wouldn't be burdening him. And I know that. I used to think, is it a burden on Ajahn? Should I just stop? But he is just, always has the time for this. His heart is so in it, you know, that it becomes very, very beautiful to be able to work together in such a way. So if this can make it easier for the next generation and the current generation, you know, you're coming in and somehow at times having to do admin in the afternoons when we have events, you know, we have to organize, I don't know, volunteers and, you know, there's a little bit more work and maybe they get tired, but it's so much different to having to start from scratch. And over time, that's going to be easier and easier for women. You know, you can come in and really have beautiful conditions. So things are much easier for you. So yeah, I have been the only nun in the project, but as I say, I've had Ajahn Brahm there. I have other bhikkhuni friends that have done something similar, and we talk from time to time. Yeah, there is Dhamma. I think here it says there's no Dhamma. There is Dhamma, definitely. Yeah, I think in the past I might have said that there's not a very great Dhamma scene in England. There's not much early Buddhism. You know, there's a lot of kind of Thai forest Buddhism, which sometimes differs in terms of right view, let's say. In terms of view, it sometimes differs, and they seem to get stuck at this level of the mind. You know, like Ajahn Brahm was saying yesterday, that all the consciousnesses arise and pass, including mano-vijnana, mind consciousness. And in some traditions they seem to say, oh, but the mind, only the pure mind is left. You know, everything ends without remainder, but the pure mind remains. And this is very confusing. So for me, that's a different kind of religion, actually, in some ways. And then, of course, we have lots of secular Buddhism. I would call it more like secular ethics or something, because there's not a whole lot about karma and rebirth in there. And they even have some organization called Early Buddhism, where they take out the idea of karma and rebirth. So it's a little bit depressing, but it's changing. Mikko in the back, who will soon be a monk, has actually established a Dhamma Society of Finland. And, well done, fantastic. And I think I made you a little video there saying that, you know, it's going to be for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. And it's going to follow the principles of early Buddhism as well, making that very clear that this is affiliated with Ajahn Brahm and his community. And there's something in Norway starting with Ajahn Nito, who some of you might know from the past. He was here with Ajahn Brahm for about 14 years, good meditator. We teach together once a year in Norway on a 9-day retreat. And also Sweden want to start something. So these Nordic countries are starting to get into early Buddhism, and there's not a lot else there. England, unfortunately, is saturated with all kinds of stuff, so you kind of get a bit hidden, you get a bit buried under all of that. But in the Nordic countries, they're sort of meeting monastic Buddhism for the first time, or at least, you know, teachers that are really teaching retreats for the first time. So me and Ajahn Nito 3 years ago, we taught the first retreat, and the biggest ever, because it was the first and only, in Norway. And last time we had 50 people. I think this time, well, we have about 100 people who apply, but we only have space for like 60 at a squeeze. So things are changing for the better in Europe. So how can lay supporters in Singapore support you? Well, just by asking the question, it's very touching, and I always feel your support. That's why I love to do the Q&A for you all, because I feel a lot of support from you. Of course, there's donations. You can do regular donations online. Even if it's £1 a month or whatever, 2 Singapore dollars a month, it adds up. You know, in fact, I forget how much of a percentage of the funds that come from that kind of regular support. You know, hundreds of people, and it accumulates and it covers our bills. So that's great, because if the bills are covered, I'm not pressed to teach incessantly and endlessly when I'm really exhausted. So that's really good. And as I said, food deliveries, if you have any skills, you can write into us, and you can come and stay. So any other way? Hopefully when we get more trainee nuns, you can offer robes as well. But I think you have yours already. So, yeah. Okay, shall we do one more? Oh, wow, look. Because I have this ethic of finishing it, so. So, here we go. Are you all good? Yes. Okay. What are the difficulties, wow, you encounter in establishing a temple of nuns monastery, basically the monastery in Oxford? Especially, well, the main problem at first was that Ajahn Brahm wanted it to be in Cambridge. So it's only a joke. But if I'd ever talk to him and say, Ajahn, it's really hard, I don't know what to do, he'd say, well, you know, that's because you did it in that other place. If you'd have done it in Cambridge. But it's not true. And Oxford has better trees, much bigger, and the river's bigger, And actually, I like it a lot. It's great. They even have rainbow flags flying everywhere now. In the past, it was super conservative and very right-wing, but now it's not so much, and it's actually quite diverse. So I like diversity. I mean, isn't metta about inclusion? I think inclusivity should mean that everyone is welcome. So I think OSPA is a very good place. Especially, you did not have the support of the biggest Buddhist temple monastery at Amaravati. Correct. I don't know, maybe that's not a bad thing. It was difficult. I'm sure that if we had their support and if they sort of said, go and visit this monastery, we'd get tons of Sri Lankan supporters, Thai supporters, all the traditional Buddhists would come. But we hardly get any because basically the ones that grew up around Amaravati are loyal supporters of that place. Just like here, Ajahn Brahm is the main, the first and the main kind of teacher. And he has now relationships with people for 40 years, 50 years. Is it 40 years? So, there's a loyalty there among the supporters. If some monk came here who this Sangha thought was not properly ordained and who this Sangha thought was not teaching correctly, would he get any support? Of course not. So it's the same for me over there, sadly. But I guess the advantage is that we've had to develop something new. We've had to develop our own community. And as I say, although our community, probably biggest on Zoom, that's when I see more people at any one time, and they're all over the world, they're very loyal. They come to us because they connect with Oz and they believe very strongly in the bhikkhuni. They just want to hear the voice of female monastics as well as male monastics. It's not even about gender in the end. I mean, when you have more variety, you just can gravitate to wherever helps you most. It's not really about gender, is it? I think while I've been away this 3 months, we've had 9 bhikkhunis and plus 2 token monks, very good monks, Ajahn Brahmali and Ajahn Sujato, teach on Zoom for our community. That's amazing, and that's all online on our YouTube channel. Can you go to any other YouTube channel where you get 9 bhikkhunis teaching? Plus the best monks as well. So, In the end, I think, like I say, we're free from a lot of the cultural expectations and we can, teach early Buddhism from the suttas directly. So there are advantages as well. So always look on the bright side of life. And I do wish you very well in your practice for the final few days. It's not the final few days, it's the best few days of this retreat. So see if you can keep your energy inside and connected to whatever small amount of peace and joy starts to bubble up, because it is there, and sometimes it's just about tuning into it, being grateful for it, and developing and deepening contentment. So see how deeply you can go inside. And thank you for your practice.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Ha ha ha. Ho ho ho. Ho ho ho. Very good.
Yeah, let's pay
Okay.
3 bows to Aya as a sign of respect.
Sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well and happy. May you have no obstacles. May you be full of contentment, no matter what arises for you. Thank you, PJ and Eiling, for inviting me. You invited me. No, it doesn't. No. Okay. Yeah.
And male visitors are allowed?
Yes, if we have space. We have 5 rooms. So, but we do have